These are the two smoothing planes I've used on this board. I generally only use this Stanley. This is a Stanley number 4. It's a great smooth plane. This is a wood-bodied smooth plane. It's made by W. Greevy and Sons. I don't know much of what the blade is. I don't know much about the actual plane itself. I'm not sure who made that. It may have been W. Greevy. I really don't know. But just like the Jack and 4 plane, the main difference between these two, aside from one being wood and one being metal, is the blade thickness. The blade thickness in the wood-bodied plane versus the Stanley is about twice as thick. The chip breaker, though, not as good of a design as the Marples was. It's a little bit thinner toward the edge than I would like, so it's not as rock solid, but it does a fairly good job. This Stanley number 4 blade, fairly thin. It's got the chip breaker problems that everyone talks about. It does still allow a bit of chatter because it only puts pressure right near the end here, and it's pretty thin. But on my smooth plane, I set the chip breaker right up against the edge. I don't leave much of a gap, maybe a 1/16 of an inch. Unlike the 4 plane and the Jack plane, I'm not trying to remove a lot of material, and the board's are already fairly flat, so I do leave my corners on here. I do just sharpen this straight across. Now, I know how you set up a smoothing plane is a pretty touchy subject. A lot of people have pretty strong opinions about how you do it to get the finest shavings possible. But I don't really intend to use my smooth plane all that much on my boards, and that's why this one's set up the way it is. I don't even have it protruding enough that you can even see it coming out of the mouth. If you were to try and sight it down the body of the plane, basically I set it so that it's actually pulled back from the mouth, and I'll push it across the wood and keep adjusting until I'm removing only slight shavings. Something like this. I feel like my Jack plane should have been set up already so that I don't have to use this very much. I'm just removing the slight imperfections left by the Jack plane. And I will go back and forth across the board, which I've done, as you saw in the video, or you'll see in the video. And basically the smooth plane just helps me bring out the last bit of figure, remove all the imperfections, clear away any tear-outs or rough spots that I have left that were caused by the Jack plane. Anything that was left by the scrub plane beforehand should already be gone. And so this is really just a formality and a final passover. And that's all I use a smooth plane for. I know some people like to get these big long strips all the way across, really thin, and I applaud them for that, but I hope to do that with my 4 plane. So this is really just to remove those last few rough spots. And that's what I'll be doing with the smooth plane. It only takes me maybe 5 minutes or so with a smooth plane on a board like this, and oftentimes, because there are areas where the grain is changing direction quite a bit, like around these little knots, you can see the figure has already emerged. I will push the plane diagonally across so that I don't tear out any further. Finer, like I said, the blade does not even protrude from the mouth visually. You're really just pushing it back and forth until you start to see these tiny little, almost translucent pieces of wood, and that's really what I'm looking for. It's just a final passing over. So you'll see how I use it in the next few minutes.
I'm about to spend about as much time using the smoothing plane as I just spent talking about it. Here I'm showing how the blade is set in the plane. It's retracted from the mouth just a bit. You can't even tell looking forward or backward along the plane that it's really even set proud, but it must be. It does take shavings. But because I'm not too confident in the wood grain just yet, because it has been a little all over the place on this board, I'm starting off with the plane skewed, and once I get a little bit of a better feel for it, I may straighten it out. And that's the kind of shaving I'm looking for, really thin, small shavings. Because of the way that the last plane was set up, the 4 planes, both of them, the edges were retracted from the blade. I sharpened a bit of a radius into the blade edge, so it leaves a bit of a scalloped surface, ever so slightly. And so what the smooth plane is doing for me is removing that scalloped surface. I'm removing all the ridges left in between my passes by the 4 plane, and once I get down to the bottom of the grooves left by the 4 plane, I'll be able to flatten out the board or peel off just a cells layer, a couple cells, to get a nice burnished, smooth looking surface. There's more of those tissue paper shavings. I'm just moving back and forth across the board like I've done with all the other planes so far. Just feeling for any obviously proud spots. Found a couple. I'm just going to go straight across here. My confidence has grown in how this wood is being cut by the smooth plane, so I'm comfortable going straight head on into the grain. And this segment is uncut just because I wanted you to see exactly what I was talking about, how little I really do use this smooth plane. I decided in the end not to use the wood-bodied smooth plane since I was happy with the results left by the Stanley number 4. Just a couple more passes here and we're all done. If you have any comments, suggestions, or questions, please leave them in the comments section below and I'll respond to them as soon as possible. If you like what you're seeing and want to see more, please subscribe. Thanks and happy woodworking.